Chris Nostalgic. You may not know the name, but you've definitely seen his content if you've scrolled through YouTube Shorts or on other social medias. I know I sure have, and this is the type of content you'll find on Chris's channel. Video after video about life's biggest questions. And a lot of those questions are the ones that humanity has been pondering for thousands of years. Which fictional characters are breedable? Almost every video on this channel is about this topic. No fictional character is safe, especially video game ones. The channel's description says, "Bro, just let me cook." We sure did, and these are the results. So in this video, we're going to go through some of these videos and really analyze them to the bones. This channel is a rabbit hole, and I'll guide us through it since I'm no stranger to analyzing strange stuff like this, really getting to the bottom of it. And we're gonna get pretty unhinged and degenerate in dissecting some of this, but it's all in fun and jest, right? We'll start here at top 3 Pokemon mummy milkers, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Paldea region and are in need of nutrition. It'd be important to know which Pokemon has the most ideal mammary glands.
This Pokemon game is based in the fictional region of Paldea. Just like with a lot of Pokemon games, there's a lot of varied environments to be found and a lot of Pokemon to see and catch. Chris goes on to nominate Sprigatito, Wigglytuff, and Chansey. One of these Pokemon is new to this region, Gen 9, and that's Sprigatito.
Sprigatito is lovable and attention-seeking, meaning if it needs to expose its nipples for milking to be noticed, it most likely will. Sprigatito can also rub its paws together to create a sweet mesmerizing aroma that can be therapeutic to anyone drinking milk around it.
I've heard people say some pretty messed up things, and this is pretty high up on that list. The first argument being made was about how it's lovable and attention-seeking, so if it needs to be milked, it'll flash itself. It's also known to get jealous and pout if you don't give it attention or give attention to other Pokemon. As much as Chris is right here, this doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things because we're talking about a damned cat in its unevolved form. It's quadrupedal and shows no signs of mummy milkers. So if Chris wanted to make an argument about Meowscarada, and then maybe I'd understand, but wait, would I? Chris also points out the aroma that this Pokemon can release from its paws, which would make milk consumption better, but it still doesn't change the fact that there's nothing attractive or mummy milker about Sprigatito. But moving on to Wigglytuff.
Wigglytuff is said to have really soft fur, which is ideal for cuddling while drinking milkies. Wigglytuff can even inflate its body to create bigger boobas.
Chris is 100% right and based with what he says here. There is absolutely nothing here to contend against. What he says is factual, and if I could give him a handshake, I would. But he fumbles the bag with Chansey.
They've been seen in maternal-like roles as they are typically caring, which makes them an ideal candidate for drinking milkies.
Just because Chansey is maternal, it doesn't mean it would have mummy milkers. It's a blob. It can't grow its boobas, so we'll move on. The choice to have Wigglytuff in this list is a fine choice, but we'll have to counter the other two. I've never played Scarlet or Violet, so I had to do an insane amount of research. I'm talking days. Even weeks would go by and I just would not see my family, and I've looked through hundreds of Pokemon Pokedex entries, movesets, all of that. And this is the conclusion I've come to. Meowscarada and Indeedee. Look, I know, the bipedal cat. I did mention that it'd be a better candidate than Sprigatito, and I stand by that. I hate that I even stand by that. It's a humanoid Pokemon with feminine features around the hips. I'd say that this Pokemon can, why have I written that? Can definitely play the role of mummy, and because it's humanoid, it'll have milkers. You can unsubscribe now. And Indeedee, well, it'll bustle around to take diligent care of people and other Pokemon to experience happy feelings such as joy and gratitude. That means that it will share its milkers with you as a way to take care of you if you need them. Also, here's an honorable mention to Glamora because it looks like a boob. Honestly, I'm kinda losing the plot here, but I had to. There wasn't any way I was going to let Sprigatito and Chansey get in the top 3 spots. But what about you? Do you agree with me? Disagree? Agree with Chris? Do you have a different top 3 list? Let everyone know in the comments section and I'll heart react the ones I agree with. Why would I do that? But enough of that. Now we'll move on to Atomic Heart and the big question, are the Ballerina twins breedable?
Let's hypothetically live in a world where robot servants become homicidal due to a failed post-war reconstruction plan. It'd be important to know how Robotussi works.
Would it? Chris points out that there's proof found within the game that alludes to the possibility of humans procreating with robots. So in this post-war Soviet setting, understanding Robotussi is essential, and not just for the elite, but for everyone. The first issue we come across here is that these robots were pretty much made to fill the workforce and do manual labor. So we can assume that they wouldn't have Robotussis because why would manual labor robots need that? They're built for that reason and they look it. Chris brings up this scene of the Ballerina twins, making comparisons to the way bedbugs procreate. It's done through stabbing the female's abdomen with a reproductive organ. From what we're seeing here, this could be done similarly, but in the world of Atomic Heart, it would be practical, but we've seen the Ballerina twins. I mean, who are we kidding here? Robots that look like that can be made. So why wouldn't someone go all out and recreate reproductive organs in between thighs like these? God damn it. Anyway, the abdomen insemination seems easy and practical, especially if it would be done like this, but the other way would be, a bit on the freaky side, the pleasurable side, and this point about these robots being conceptualized for the Soviet elite would give evidence for robots being made like this, and for Robotussi. But honestly, this could go both ways. I'm sure efficiency would be for the everyday person, but anything more would need to be bought for a heavy price or through connections. It just makes sense, right? So we can't confirm if the Ballerina twins are breedable, but the blueprints are there for it, for both ways.
Is Nora breedable?
Okay, we don't need to answer that question yet. Should I debate Chris nostalgic? Now let's move on to an even worse topic.
Hypothetically, you're a Greek god about to procreate with a goddess. It'd be important to know if you're related or not.
God damn it. At first, I thought, no way, this can't be the case, and then Chris pulled out the facts, and this is where we ponder the question. Is Aphrodite his great aunt, or is she his sister? Please be none of them. According to the ancient Greek poet Hesiod, she was born from Uranus, and according to another Greek poet, Homer, she was a daughter of Zeus and Dion. This is an important thing to ponder because in God of War 3, there's a minigame that has you get jiggy with Aphrodite. So either way, Kratos will have had a Greek mythology moment. It's just, we have to figure out to what degree. Well, we can answer that pretty easily. The God of War universe is Greek, Norse, and possibly Japanese and Egyptian mythology if a son of Zeus and one of the many mortal women he procreated with waged war on the gods. That son is Kratos, and we've seen what he's done to the Greek and Norse pantheon, but Kratos' blood relations with Aphrodite haven't changed. And from what I've been able to find from weeks and weeks of research, in the God of War universe, we can confirm that Aphrodite was born from Uranus' lobbed off testicle that landed in the ocean. So that would make Aphrodite's mother technically the ocean according to that. So she was born of Uranus, the personification of heaven and the ocean. Why did this happen? His son Kronos, who he had with Gaia, the personification of earth, did the deed and threw them into the ocean. Truly, another Greek mythology moment. From here, Kronos did some silly stuff with his sister Rhea, and they had a bunch of godly children, one of them being Zeus. There's that bloodline connection since Zeus is Kratos' father and his mother was a simple mortal woman. So he did, in fact, ruffle some jimmies with his great aunt in a Greek mythology moment.
Does Kratos ever use Mimir for sloppy toppy?
I'd hope not. And that leads us to the next video. Will a horse impregnate Atreus? I can't even say it. Will a horse impregnate Atreus in the sequel? We have to use the logic we used in the last God of War question here to understand if, whatever this means will happen. In Norse mythology, Loki is the son of Farbeti and Lofe. There's also lots and lots of stories of the other Norse gods and people intertwining their lives and stories together, obviously. But the one I want to focus on here is, this horse comment. Long story short, a craftsman promised to build fortifications for Odin in exchange for Freya, Odin's wife, the sun and moon. Odin said that if he did it within 3 months by himself, then he'd agree, knowing that the craftsman couldn't do it. They negotiated some more and the craftsman was allowed to have his horse, Svalfari, help him. Little did Odin know, the horse was incredibly strong. Obviously, he didn't want the craftsman to win, so he conspires against him and gets Loki to see that the fortification build fails. So just like any normal person would, Loki transforms into a mare and ruffles the jimmies of Svalfari, and that causes the fortifications to not be built. This also results in Loki giving birth to his 8-legged horse son, Sleipnir. What a freak show. But as we've seen in the Greek pantheon, Kratos' existence shifted the course of everything, leading to different events transpiring compared to the ones we're familiar with. The same logic should be applied here in the Norse pantheon. Firstly, Atreus, also known as Loki by the giants, doesn't have Farbeti as his father, is Kratos. So Kratos moving to the Norse lands and replacing his father was enough to shift all of the mythological events we know, and if you know a bit about Norse mythology, you'll know that there's a lot of differences thanks to Kratos' inclusion, but a lot of similarities too. Laufey is technically Atreus' mother, but she's known as Faye. It could be a nickname, but no one else calls her Laufey. Another major similarity is Atreus' children, the topic of Chris's video. We've seen the wolf Fenrir and the world serpent Jormungandr. Fenrir was one of Atreus' wolves that got sick and died at the start of the game. Unknowingly, Atreus transferred his soul to his knife. When Angrboda informs him of this, it's unclear if he understands what he did, but he inserts the knife into Garm knowing that there was a soul in it in order to stop Garm's rampaging. After that, Fenrir's soul takes over Garm's body and that's Atreus' and Angrboda's son now, just in a different way to what we know. But we can go even further back to God of War, the first one in the Norse mythology games. Jormungandr. Early in that game, it stated that the world serpent kind of just showed up, and he states that he recognizes Atreus. In Angrboda's grandma's shack, there's an imprisoned snake that's missing its soul thanks to her taking it. Atreus puts a soul of a giant into it, causing it to awaken and scurry off. Later in the story, Angrboda tells Atreus that the snake has been growing at a fast rate. Atreus wasn't surprised because he thought that snake was to become Jormungandr that we all know. So Atreus and Angrboda gave life to their son here. He started to grow up fast, somehow time traveled and ended up seeing his father, Atreus, before he gave quote-unquote birth to him. There's still one child we're yet to see be birthed thanks to Atreus and Angrboda, and that's Hel, a being that resides in the place of the same name. Who knows how that'll transpire? What about Atreus' children with Sigyn, Nafi or Nari, and the kind of thought to be son Vali? They may never come to be. And what of Sleipnir? Atreus never truly teamed up with Odin, so those events would never happen either. So it seems unlikely that any horse business will go down, which is a sigh of relief, especially since we've only seen children created by Atreus and Angrboda show up. But Chris still has a point here.
So will Atreus breed horses in the sequel? Well, I suppose that depends on Santa Monica Studios.
That was a lot of God of War and mythology to take in there. Too much to take in if you ask me. So let's chill out with my favorite waste of resources and Steam store page space, Overwatch 2. It's a big franchise and you'll probably recognize it even if you haven't played the game. So sticking to the topic of that, Chris has been trying to answer the hard-hitting questions in that field. Is Genji breedable?
You rehabilitate a ninja from a gang that has adopted a new cybernetic body. It'd be important to know whether or not the ballistics are still equipped.
Everything he says is lore accurate. I can't fault him anyway here. The Michael Chu comment on Genji having a working lower body is true. Here's the full quote. If you look at Genji's Blackwatch skin, you could see that part of his body is missing, but I can confirm his lower half is still intact and normal. End quote. That means his private parts work, therefore, breedable.
He is breedable. But the true question is, who does Hammond breed?
Divas Mexu? No, I'm sorry. And now, another heated question from Overwatch. Is Bastion breedable? The rabbit hole is getting deeper.
Trying to destroy humanity, decides it wants to procreate with you. It'd be important to know whether or not Robotussi would be a comfortable experience.
Again, Chris is so right. There's nothing we can see in Bastion to indicate that he has any sort of soft or fleshy parts. He was made to be a killing machine after all, which is similar logic to the one we use when talking about manual labor robots in Atomic Heart. If a robot is made for something that doesn't include procreation, then it wouldn't have a robotussi. A great point Chris makes is that Bastion's bird, Ganymede, follows him into battle, so it would also follow him into the bedroom. Saying that it's a massive ethical dilemma is an understatement. So even if Bastion had a robotussi, the issue of the bird following him everywhere arises. And what? Are you going to give the bird separation anxiety, leaving it in another room while you get your rocks off if there was some robotussi? You sick freak.
But the true question is, can I use Echo to duplicate myself and breed my mirror image?
This has to stop. But it can't, because we still have another burning question on our minds, collectively. I know exactly what you're thinking, and you know exactly what I'm thinking. Yep, that's right. Is Kiriko's fox spirit breedable?
Let's say hypothetically you were granted supernatural powers by a celestial fox, but you spend a majority of your life on the Overwatch 2 queue. It'd be important to know if your fox spirit is breedable.
Chris then goes on to explain that Kitsune have the ability to transform into a human form to teach people valuable life lessons and even for spoinking. The story of Kuzunoha from Japanese folklore is the story we can grab this information from, and Chris has done the same. It's a tale as old as time. See, a nobleman, Yasuna, finds a military commissioner hunting foxes for their liver, an ingredient for a medicine he needs. Yasuna fights the commissioner, wins, but is severely wounded from the fight. Regardless, he frees a white fox trapped in a cage. Mysteriously, a beautiful woman called Kuzunoha appears soon later, helping him to his home and tends to his wounds. And just like any man who gets a crumb of female attention, Yasuna falls in love with her, marries her, and then they have a son, Seimei. There's still more to this story, but this is the important part. Kitsunes are confirmed to take form of a human and procreate. For a kitsune to take a human form though, it must reach a certain age. The earliest told being around 50 years old, but usually 100. Even when having gained this ability, it can't be done in an instant. A kitsune must place reeds, a leaf, or a skull over its head. Kuzunoha must have done this, and so must Kiriko's spirit. If this were to happen, it would in fact make Kiriko's kitsune breedable.
But the true question is, does Genji still have his balls?
We've already got the answer to that. Why do we have the answer to that? Oh my... Alright, what's next here on the list? Oh god. Oh no. We're moving on to The Last of Us. Are clickers breedable?
Let's say hypothetically you lived in a post-apocalyptic world where all your loved ones have tragically perished. It'd be important to know whether or not Clickgussy is worth it.
If you know much about the cordyceps virus, you know that it spreads through bodily fluids, so that's why biting is so efficient in spreading the virus, and Chris points that out. Body fluids. If you get where I'm going with this, okay, cool, thank you. I don't need to clarify or continue. Chris concludes that clickers are not breedable because the cons outweigh the pros, but just because they do, it doesn't mean it's not possible. But please, don't.
But the true question is, where does all the poop go in the quarantine zones?
You know, some questions are just better left unanswered. Speaking of questions that should be left unanswered...
Are Necromorphs breedable? Let's say hypothetically you find a giant landmark that gives you violent tendencies while also transforming your coworkers into monsters. It'd be important to find out if Necromussy is worth it.
Oh my god, Necromussy. Why is there a word for that? How far is too far? If you know anything about Necromorphs in the Deadspace universe, you'll know that any act with this thing would be highly immoral and vile. Long story short, their bodies, or an assortment of body parts that are reanimated, so necro cheeks would be extremely forbidden. Not only that, but they're reconstructed for the sole purpose of being killing machines. So again, we can use the logic we use when talking about Atomic Heart and Bastion. Nobody get any ideas, no one be weird. Please, no one be weird.
Illegal. But the true question is, if I needed to take a dump on the Ishimura, what's the likelihood a swarmer would climb up my booty hole?
I can't do this anymore. We gotta stop. I can't take it anymore. No more, please.
Is Grimace breedable? Let's say hypothetically an anthropomorphic dog that milks...
Okay, one more. Chris points out an episode of the McDonald's series from 1998 where we see Grimace's species and the island they live on, Grimace Island. The species itself is also known as Grimace, so they're all Grimaces. That's kind of weird considering that Grimace is called Grimace. So what, did he, his parents, and his friends not give him a name or nickname? But that's not the point here. This is the major point. We see a video of Grimace's mum and dad, and if he has a mum and dad, then yes, we can confirm that Grimace is breedable. But how? What unlocks the Grimace Ussi? Chris points out that it's confirmed that the Grimace species are actually taste buds, and this is true, it's all facts. But how do taste buds make other taste buds? Chris highlights something very important. They could have cloacas. These are bodily chambers where the intestinal, urinary, and genital tracts open, so yes, that does seem very possible given their appearance. But, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to disagree here. I'd argue that the Grimace species can actually do the birds and the bees. Here's this scene again of Grimace's parents holding each other and slow dancing. Look at them, they feel emotions and they're doing what we do as humans when we're into someone. So what's the chance that they have similar autonomy to us despite being taste buds? And then Chris goes on to talk about how wet Grimace's toes would be to suckle because he's a taste bud. No comment there. I don't want to go there. He's right, but I don't want to.
Grimace is breedable. But the true question is, if there are anthropomorphic McNuggets in McDonald's lore, does that mean they're breedable?
Well, that's the Chris Nostalgic channel. Looking deeper and deeper, and we can see an assortment of more random videos, but that wasn't what I wanted to focus on. These are the demons we chose to tackle. So I hope you learned something new because I sure did. Life's biggest questions were answered in this video, and there's still more that we could've. But I'm not strong enough. The research and breedability analyses that I've had to undertake have taken its toll. But in all seriousness, Chris and his channel are funny as. This is truly the niche of all time, so I had to talk about it. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe for more, and I've noticed an influx of new subscribers to the channel, so welcome. This was probably not the video you'd be expecting coming off of this, but I hope you enjoyed it regardless. I'm still working on the 50k sub special, so look forward to that soon too. Leave a comment telling me what you thought about this video and what we talked about. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Are you confused? Should I debate Chris Nostalgic? Let me know in the comment section. Oh, and as always, here's a massive shout out to my lovely patrons. You guys are absolute legends, and I'll catch ya in the next one.